Discover 12 spine-chilling Bigfoot encounters from the cursed depths of haunted forests exposed. The podcast's chilling introduction echoed through their modest living room, urging Jessica to glance nervously at her 15-year-old son, Ethan, as he leaned closer to the speaker. "Can you believe it?" he exclaimed, eyes wide. "Some guy claims to have found Bigfoot. Right here in Oregon." Jessica's heart sank. The allure of the forest was intoxicating for her son, but with every tale, new fears gnawed at her gut. What if he truly believed in the stories? As she worked her second job at the diner, those sinister stories lingered like a heavy fog, wrapping around her thoughts. Dark woods swallowing lives whole, people vanishing in the night, never to return. Memories of late-night campfire stories came rushing back, the imaginations of children turned into nightmares. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan burst in with an idea that made Jessica's blood run cold: a nighttime expedition into the haunted woods nearby. "Mom! We could uncover evidence. Just think how awesome it'll be." His enthusiasm was contagious, but Jessica felt panic rise. The woods were notorious for their ghost tales and the unsolved mysteries of missing people. Still, a mother's instinct compelled her to protect. "Fine," she sighed, hiding her dread, "but we'll be back by midnight." As twilight descended, shadows engulfed the neighborhood. Wisps of fog lingered just beyond the treetops, and Jessica's heart hammered against her ribs. "It'll be fine," she assured herself, though she could hear her thoughts racing like a pack of wild animals. They stepped into the woods, the familiar sounds of suburbia fading like a distant memory. Jessica could feel the air grow thick, the silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. Each crunch of twigs underfoot resonated like a drumbeat of dread. Towering trees loomed, their gnarled branches snatching at the moonlight which dared to filter down. Fear crawled up her spine. What lurked in the shadows? A distant growl broke the stillness, freezing her blood. Jessica's grip tightened on Ethan's arm. He, however, was fueled by excitement, determined to push further. "Did you hear that? Maybe it's Bigfoot." The forest seemed to respond, mischievous whispers threading through the chilly air. As they wandered through, the darkness came alive with eerie rustling, as if it had a pulse. Shadows flickered. Every movement made her jump, every sound slicing through her nerves. Then, hidden among twisted roots and thick underbrush, they stumbled upon a dilapidated shack. Its sagging walls exuded resignation, darkened windows resembling empty eyes sizing them up. The air was stale with unseen history, thick with lingering dread. "What if?" Jessica whispered, but Ethan was already stepping inside, curiosity overpowering caution. Inside, a chill wrapped around them. Abandoned clothes, muddy boots, and carvings etched into the walls, stories of lost souls, remnants of those who vanished in the shadows. What had happened to them? Why hadn't anyone warned them? Just then, thunder rumbled above as ominous clouds rolled in, stealing what little light lingered in the trees. The growls returned, closer now, shattering any false sense of safety. Jessica's protective instinct screamed, "We need to leave." As they turned to flee, silhouettes emerged from the darkness, monstrous shapes creeping toward them. Her heart pounded violently as dread enveloped her. Were they just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or was lurking terror more real than they ever imagined? With every second echoing the question, Jessica realized in the depths of that haunted forest, they might not escape the horrors that awaited them, both within and beyond. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As darkness swallowed the world around them, Jessica realized those monstrous shadows were not the only threat. The real horror lingered just beyond their suburban lives, waiting, watching what would happen next. Adrenaline surged through Jessica as she tugged at Ethan to pull him toward the door. The growls grew louder, their guttural sound echoing through the dilapidated shack, reverberating in her bones. "We shouldn't be here," she gasped, trying to keep her panic in check. The air felt electric, charged with a looming danger that blanketed the very fabric of the night. Just as she was about to push Ethan ahead of her, the door creaked ominously. In that heartbeat, she turned to find a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her from the inky darkness, watching, waiting. Mom?" Ethan stammered, his voice quivering as he peered back into the fading light of the woods. "What's out there? Just keep moving." She spat, her own voice thin and frightened. There was no more time for curiosity, no more glancing back at the shadows that danced just beyond their reach. She stepped outside, the crunch of leaves underfoot sounding like gunfire in the oppressive silence. They began running, the forest seeming to stretch on endlessly as if trying to hold them captive. The growls morphed into something more primal, deeper, as if an unseen predator tailed them, determined not to let them escape. Scrambling over roots, Jessica tripped but quickly regained her footing, tugging on Ethan's sleeve as they dashed through the underbrush. "Mom! What do we do?" he shouted, breathless but aware of the danger. She could feel his fear leaking into her confidence, the right panic blending with her instinct to survive. "Stay quiet," she instructed tightly. The thick trees swallowed their voices whole, rendering them invisible between gnarled trunks and the grasping branches overhead. Suddenly, a massive shadow slid across the ground, barreling toward them, something huge, something alive, and it was coming fast. Jessica pulled Ethan close, pressing against a tree's bark. Her heart galloped wildly, panic flushing her face. She could feel the heat radiating from the entity as it sniffed the air, just meters away. It was almost right there, too close for comfort. Ethan's breath came in short bursts as he hugged her. Those stories, those podcasts, they were real. "No," she hissed, desperation piercing her tone. "We have to keep moving. Don't think about that." Just as they gathered enough courage to bolt, the ground trembled beneath them. With a horrible crash, the beast broke through the thick underbrush, its towering silhouette blocking the moonlight. An abomination, covered in thick, matted hair, it stood almost 7 feet tall, a behemoth of primal terror. Jessica's instincts screamed at her to run, but fear froze her in place. Ethan yanked an arm free, eyes wide and terrified. "Mom!" She turned to grab him, but the creature's roar split the night, shattering her focus and sending them sprawling backwards. They stumbled, and a loud crack of a branch snapped behind them. The safety of the shack felt long gone, the direction they came lost to fear-fueled adrenaline. Shadows morphed and twisted, all around them now, the growls closing in again. There were more than just one. "Ethan!" Her voice was raw, panic clawing at her throat. "This way." Attempting to lead him deeper into the woods felt like risking it all. The more they could see, the more lodged in terror she became. They stumbled into a clearing moonlit with ghostly pallor where ruined remnants of past lives lay strewn among thick undergrowth. Names carved into stones were swallowed by moss, forgotten but echoing faintly through the air. "Help me," they whispered. When the growls rose again, a chorus of monstrous voices, eerily close. Jessica braced herself against a tree, pulling Ethan close as jagged breaths escaped her lips. She felt the tremors beneath her feet, the forest alive with dread. Then, they heard it, a low, chilling laugh, layered with whispers, crawling into their minds. "You shouldn't have come." What could she do? The haunting realities of what was before them tightened the noose of terror. "Ever been on a wild hunt?" the voices murmured. As the shadows shifted, shapes began to draw nearer in the madness of overwhelming instinct. A single thought flared in Jessica's mind: escape. Didn't linger in mere survival. The real horror? It had been biding its time, harvesting fear as its own, or what had they awakened? With eyes wide and hearts racing under the night sky, they realized the forest was hungry, and just one question remained: who would become its next victim? Jessica's heart raced, pounding as fiercely as the growls echoing in her ears. The darkness pressed in around them, shifting, writhing, almost alive. Ethan clutched her hand, his small fingers trembling as fear seeped into their bloodstream. The silhouettes they glimpsed through the tree trunks flickered and vanished, but they were not alone in the night. "Mom! What do we do?" Ethan's voice quivered, the pitch rising as the unseen presence drew closer. "Just stay close," she whispered, her throat raw. Adrenaline surged again. They had to move. From the clearing, chaos erupted, branches snapping and rustling all around them. The shadows surged, illuminated only by the glimpse of moonlight filtering through the trees. Jessica's eyes darted left and right, taking in forms that flickered close, then vanished. Gil's eerie laughter swirled in the air, twisting into a sinister melody that echoed through the trees. "You shouldn't have come." It was a taunt, striking a nerve deep within her. Their stories hadn't just been old tales, they were warnings, curses wrapped in folklore. "Run!" Jessica yelled, breaking the spell of freezing horror. She pulled Ethan towards a thicket thicker than the rest. "Don't look back." But looking back was involuntary. Just when they thought they could hide, a growl split the air, scraping against her senses, sending splinters of fear through her spine. Ethan gasped, choking on terror, and Jessica felt her heart seize in her chest. They ducked into the thicket, the branches clawing at their limbs. It felt only slightly safer there, but a terrifying thought crept into her mind: what if they went deeper? With the creature's growl echoing around them, she could sense how close danger was. Time disintegrated, seconds felt like hours. Ethan stumbled, nearly tripping over a gnarled root. "Mom, I can't, just keep moving." They pushed onwards into a tunnel formed by tangled vines and twisted trees. The laughter followed them, crawling like insects. Faster. Finally, they broke free into another clearing, but it was far worse. The moonlight drained from the sky, replaced by a heavy fog that swallowed the air around them. "Look!" Ethan pointed ahead. A crude stone altar shot up from ground level, encrusted with moss, surrounded by wilted flowers whose colors seemed drained. It looked ancient but unnatural. In its center lay an object wrapped in dark fabric. Jessica felt a magnetic pull towards that altar. "We need to go." The laughter intensified, swirling around them like a storm. "You can't outrun the hunt." Fingers trembling, Jessica approached the altar. The fabric whispered secrets untold as she peeled back the corners. What she uncovered chilled her dark brown pelts, stained with dried crimson. A heartbeat of primal instinct roared in her mind, urging her to flee, but curiosity rooted her. "What is this?" she breathed, fear curling through her like a vice. And close behind them, the growls came again, this time louder, deeper. The shadows moved, converging towards them, a cacophony of snarls echoing through the mist. Eyes glinted in the darkness, hungry. "No!" she shouted, turning just in time to see a massive shape emerge from the fog. It towered higher than before, the behemoth silhouette illuminated by the fading moonlight. Muscles rippled beneath matted fur as it advanced. Panic surged, and Jessica instinctively grabbed Ethan, pulling him to the side. But the altar, this dark secret place, felt like the epicenter of a sinister ritual. "What have we stumbled upon?" she thought, terrified and trapped. All the stories were true, but now they mattered in the face of bloodthirsty claws. As the creature loomed closer, its breath hot and acrid, something flickered in Jessica's mind. An old legend she once dismissed: those who seek to uncover buried darkness never leave unscathed. With her heart pounding, she made a choice. "Hold on to me, Ethan," she shouted. They darted just as the beast lunged, claws ripping through where they had been an instant before. Running, but to where? The suffocating fog thickened, wrapping. around like a shroud. Where was the way out? Would they find salvation or become part of the forest's next chapter of horror? Out of the darkness, the voice returned, promising you're already ours. Would they escape? Or had they already sealed their fate? In a world ruled by nightmares, every step whispered dread, and terror tallied its score. They ran, the thick fog swallowing their frantic breaths, each step a battle against the unknown that lurked behind them. Jessica clutched Ethan tighter, fear crashing over her like icy waves. The laughter rang in her ears, growing nearer, filling her with dread. "Mom, I can't see anything." Ethan's voice cut through the fog, laced with desperation. "Just keep moving," she urged. The ground was uneven, roots snagging at their feet, but they pressed on, heartbeats thundering in sync. Every growl echoed through the thick air, reverberating in her chest, a countdown whispering that their time was running out. Suddenly, an overwhelming sense of danger surged, and Jessica wrenched her head back. A hulking shadow darted between the trees, so fast it blurred the edges of its form. "Ethan!" she cried. "Stay close." A wild rush of energy propelled them forward. They broke from the fog and into another clearing, but the sight that met them made Jessica's stomach churn. Scattered bones littered the ground, bleached and cracked, remnants of past victims. The faint, metallic scent of blood hung heavy in the air. Her breath hitched, and she forced herself to look away. "Where do we go?" Ethan asked, his voice quivering. A flicker of movement caught her attention. From the depths of the trees, glowing eyes stared back, protruding from the darkness like stars peering down at a burning world. Jessica's blood ran cold. "We don't have much time." She grabbed Ethan's hand again, darting towards the only possible escape. They ran until their legs burned, dodging the tangled underbrush and half-fallen branches. The giggling grew louder, morphing into a sinister chant. "This way to your end. This way to your end." Ethan stumbled. "Mom. I can't. Please, just a little further. I promise." A howling erupted from behind, and a chill sliced through the air, freezing Jessica's heart. The growling picked up again, deafening, shaking their surroundings. It was right on their heels now, determined to claim them. Jessica turned abruptly, looking for a new direction to run. Yet, before she could decide, a form lunged out from the fog, a beast with wild eyes and jagged teeth, a truly nightmarish predator. It was closer than static shadows could have suggested, more real than the terror grappling with her mind. "Run!" she screamed again, yanking Ethan forward as they sprinted into a narrow thicket. Branches whipped at their faces, but she wouldn't let anything stop them. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. The ground sloped downhill, twisting like a snake. She struggled for balance but kept going, heart sinking into despair. "Mom!" Ethan cried, panic bursting from him as he slipped out of her grip. "Ethan!" Jessica turned, her heartbeat a loud drum in the desperate silence that met the sound of his name. It was a moment suspended in time, the air thickening around her, swelling with impending doom. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw him at the edge of the thicket. "Over here," he gasped, pointing to a dark cave entrance, nearly hidden among the twisting roots. She hustled over, but glancing back, she felt the creature's shadow approach. It loomed like a nightmare brought to life. "No!" she cried, running faster, shoving Ethan into the cave first. But her foot caught on a root, sending her tumbling to the ground just as the beast let out a terrifying roar. Jessica scrambled upright, feeling the tug of something cold, wet against her skin. The cave was dark, a gaping maw that swallowed the last remnants of light. It was now or never. She dove into the cave after Ethan, the earth rough and unsettling as she landed beside him. Darkness enveloped them, thick and suffocating. They pressed themselves against the damp wall, hearts pounding in rhythm with the growls that resonated from outside. Then, a chilling realization took hold. If it finds a way in, she started, but then fell silent. As the growling morphed into an eerie silence, Jessica strained to hear anything beyond their shallow breaths. But something was shifting in the dark, the flickering light she could barely make out. Undulating features dancing in front of them. "Ethan, stay back," she whispered, trepidation lacing her words, realizing they weren't as alone as they thought. Something stirred lurking just beyond the shadows. What else awaited them in this cavern of horrors? Soon, the truth would be revealed, but would they be ready to face it? The cave was colder than Jessica had anticipated, the dampness seeping into her bones. The darkness felt alive, pulsating with whispers that seemed to crawl along her skin. She held Ethan tightly against her, willing her racing heart to slow, but it only accelerated. "Mom, what is happening?" Ethan's voice trembled as he clutched her hand. She could hear the tremors in his small body, could feel the effort it took him to be brave. "I don't know," Jessica managed, eyes straining in the dark. "Just stay quiet." The growling outside faded into a low rumble, then silence. In that stillness, the dark seemed to expand. It swallowed any echo of life, creating a suffocating cocoon that wrapped around them. As they pressed together against the cave wall, Jessica's breath caught when the undulating glow flickered again, a soft light emanating from the depths, casting eerie shadows that shifted like specters. She squinted, trying to make out the shapes, but the dark twisted the truth into something grotesque. "What is that?" Ethan whispered, and her body tensed. The quiet was too oppressive, too foreboding. "Stay here," she whispered back, her voice low and shaky. She slowly moved toward the light, heart hammering as each step echoed in her ears. The flicker seemed to pulse, drawing her closer like a moth to a flame. Then, without warning, a guttural voice surged from the shadows, blasting through the still air. "Foolish creatures. You think you've escaped?" Jessica froze, panic coursing through her veins. "Ethan, don't move," she hissed, keeping her eyes trained on the looming darkness ahead. The voice laughed, low and mocking. "You seek refuge in shadows, yet you don't know who truly dwells within." With every word, the shadows twisted further. Figures emerged, faces contorted in grotesque smiles. Strange creatures, eyes glowing with malice, surrounded the flickering light. Their skin was a sickening hue, pale, almost translucent, revealing jagged bones underneath. Jessica stumbled back, gripping Ethan's shoulder. "Run!" she shouted, but the figures laughed again, their voices mingling into a haunting chorus. "Where will you run, little ones? This cave is your end." Hearts pounding, they darted deeper into the cavern, the glow directly behind them, illuminating the horror around. Squeezing through narrow crevices, Jessica felt the cold stone brush her skin, and she pushed against Ethan, urging him through the darkness. "We can't stop," she gasped, knowing even a moment of hesitation could cost them everything. The laughter echoed behind them, fueling her adrenaline, urging her forward. Suddenly, the cave opened into a larger chamber, and they stumbled into a nightmare. The walls were lined with bones, enormous, twisted remains that suggested monstrous forms had once roamed this cursed place. "What is this?" Ethan gasped, eyes wide with terror. Clutching her son, Jessica scanned the chamber. The flickering light illuminated something worse, a massive creature hunched in the corner, its back turned. Hairy and gigantic, it stirred, as if coming alive from the shadows. "Mom," Ethan whimpered, clutching her shirt. Panic seized Jessica, and she called out, "We need to go. Now!" But before they could turn, the creature slowly twisted around, revealing a face that was a nightmare etched in bone and shadow. It fixed its glowing eyes on them, a grin stretching across its features, filled with sharp teeth and malice. "You can't escape," it rasped, voice rumbling through the chamber like distant thunder. Jessica felt the cold grip of despair clutch her heart. "Ethan, run!" she yelled, pushing him toward a dark tunnel on the other side of the chamber. They sprinted, but the growling whisked behind them, echoing off the cave walls, a sinister promise that they were not safe yet. As they barreled into the tunnel, darkness swallowed them again. Terrified and desperate, they fled further into the unknown, knowing the horror wasn't far behind. "Mom, what if it gets us?" Ethan's voice broke, the fear palpable. "Just keep running. We have to keep moving." But with every frantic step, Jessica could feel their chances slipping away. And as she pressed on, a question loomed larger than any beast. What awaited them at the other end of this tunnel? Would the light lead them to freedom or deeper into the abyss? The tunnel twisted and turned, narrowing so much at times that they had to squeeze through gaps that scraped against their skin. Jessica's heart raced, but it wasn't only fear driving her now, it was an instinct deep in her bones. They had to escape. She gripped Ethan's hand tighter, their fingers interlaced like vines, as if that connection could somehow shield them from the horrors lurking in the dark. "Mom, I can't see. It's so dark." Ethan cried, his small voice breaking the ominous silence. "Just listen to my voice, Ethan. Follow my voice," she urged, trying to keep calm even as adrenaline screamed through her. Behind them, she could hear the creature's growls morphing into something worse, hungry and relentless, echoing along the walls like whispers of despair. In a moment of madness, Jessica risked a glance back. The creature had not followed them through the chamber. Its twisted form was nowhere to be seen, but its laughter still echoed, a low, menacing chuckle that crawled along her skin. Shaking her head to clear the thought, she focused on moving through the oppressive darkness. As they plunged deeper into the tunnel, a distant sound reached her ears, soft, like running water. Hope flickered, but it was quickly snuffed out by the cold reminder of their pursuer. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted. Jessica stumbled, just managing to keep her balance. Ethan's small feet faltered, and he cried out in surprise. "Mom! Keep holding on!" She shouted over the piercing echoes that surrounded them. As their surroundings shifted from jagged stone to smoother surfaces, Jessica felt the air around them change, too less musty, more alive, as if they were moving toward something. She could still sense the threats in the shadows, but she couldn't stop now. Dread loomed heavily as they pressed on, fear and urgency knitting tighter in her chest. Finally, the tunnel opened up into another chamber, this one lit by a sickly green glow. Jessica squinted, shielding her eyes as they stumbled into the new space. The walls were slick with moisture, glistening like the scales of a beast. And in the center lay a pool of murky water, bubbling and frothing as if something beneath fought to surface. "Mom, look!" Ethan pointed, his eyes wide with both awe and terror. Jessica turned her gaze to where he indicated. Emerging from the pool, shadows warped and danced, twisting into grotesque shapes that seemed to be alive. The water reflected the glowing light, creating an illusion of movement. They were trapped between the glowing figures lingering above the surface and the oppressive darkness behind them. Is it safe?" Ethan's voice trembled. "I don't know," she whispered, panic growing. "But we have to choose. Now." Suddenly, a loud splash erupted from the pool as a monstrous hand broke the surface. Fingers, long and sinewy, dripped with whatever foulness lay beneath, reaching out as if beckoning them closer, a grotesque invitation to join whatever horrors lurked below. "Run!" Jessica screamed, yanking Ethan with her as terror erupted inside her. They darted to the far wall of the chamber, minds racing for solutions. But what lay before them was an indiscernible mess of shadows and shapes, all watching and waiting. "What are we going to do?" Ethan whimpered, tears pooling in the corners of his eyes, reflecting the ominous green glow. "We find a way out," Jessica whispered, fighting the despair threatening to drown her. But as she turned back to scan for an exit, the laughter that had plagued them before echoed through the chamber again, louder and filled with triumph. "You can't escape," little one's desperation set in, and Jessica felt a wave of cold panic wash over her. What if this truly was their end? What if they were just pawns in a game played by unseen horrors? Yet, there was no time to dwell on despair. The sound of stillness shifted with a new urgency, a heartbeat like a drum rattled in her ears. Would it guide them to freedom or doom? With nowhere else to go, she pulled Ethan toward the thick darkness on their right, clinging to the slender hope that this path might lead them to safety, only to step directly into an unseen danger lurking within. The question hung in the air, heavy and unresolved. What awaited them deeper within the abyss? The darkness closed in around them as they plunged deeper into the tunnel, the sickly glow from the chamber fading behind them like a distant nightmare. The air grew thicker, tasting of damp earth and something metallic that sent shivers down Jessica's spine. She glanced down at Ethan, his small form trembling beside her, and squeezed his hand tighter, fighting the encroaching fear that threatened to consume her. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice barely crawling past the tightness in her throat. They continued to move forward, each step echoing ominously. Unseen creatures, lurking in the shadows, seemed to press in around them. The laughter that had followed them earlier faded, but its haunting memory lingered, making her skin crawl. Suddenly, a scraping sound pierced through the silence like nails on stone. Jessica's heart raced as she instinctively pulled Ethan closer. "Did you hear that?" Yeah, Ethan's voice trembled. They paused, holding their breath, straining to hear anything more. But the silence returned, thick and suffocating, broken only by the drip of water somewhere ahead. Each drop echoed like a distant heartbeat, marking the passage of time in a place they could not understand or escape. "Let us keep moving," Jessica urged, her voice cracking. A few feet ahead, the tunnel widened again, this time opening into a narrow ravine filled with shadows. Unease twisted in her gut. She could sense that something was watching them, hidden just beyond the reach of their vision. As they crept along the ledge, Ethan suddenly gasped. "Mom, look!" She followed his gaze, and her breath caught in her throat. In the darkness, a pair of eyes blinked back at them, glowing and vicious, reflecting the faint light like two shards of glass. Fear gripped Jessica's heart, and she felt her vision narrowing, the panic clawing at her insides. "Run!" She didn't need to say it twice. They took off, darting across the narrow path. The weight of their footsteps reverberated as they moved, echoing off walls that seemed to close in around them, hungry for their presence. Behind them, a guttural growl rumbled, sending a jolt of primal terror through her. They couldn't slow down. "Mom! I can't keep up." Ethan's voice was raw. "Just a little further." She shouted back, pushing herself harder. The path dipped sharply, and they stumbled as they rounded a corner. Jessica reached out, desperately looking for something to grab onto, anything to keep from losing balance. Her fingers found rock, and she steadied herself, pulling Ethan close. When they finally regained their footing, a new sound filled the air, the cracking of bones, snapping like twigs. Jessica looked around, her breath quickening as shadows twisted in the corner of her eye. "What is that?" Ethan whimpered, fear etched on his small face. "I don't know," she whispered. They pressed against the wall as echoes of scuttling sounds swirled around them, a festering swarm of unseen danger. Sweat dripped down her back, chilling her to the bone. Then they saw it, a silhouette, taller than a man, monstrous and twisted. Its limbs moved in unnatural ways as it crept closer, the light of its eyes illuminating the grotesque features of its face. "Run!" She didn't think. She pulled Ethan, dragging him down the narrow passage, praying for an end to this waking nightmare. But the creature was relentless, each step heavy and purposeful. She could hear it behind them, breathing heavily, a sound that sent waves of dread crashing over her. They were losing ground fast, and a petrified thought struck her: what if there was nowhere left to run? The tunnel began to fork ahead, and instinct kicked in. She pulled Ethan toward the left passage, hoping for a miracle. "Mom! Mom! It's coming!" Ethan screamed. Jessica's heart broke anew as she glanced back, seeing the full silhouette rushing toward them. She could feel a sickening pressure in her chest. A flicker of hope appeared, a faint light ahead. But as they raced toward it, she could see the light flickering, sputtering, as if it were teasing her, luring her into another trap. Would they step into a greater horror? Just as they reached the end, Jessica could only gasp at what lay before them, an abyss draped in shadows, an open void. Was this escape, or yet another nightmare waiting to swallow them whole? What choice could they make now? "Mom!" Ethan pulled on her sleeve, trembling. In that moment of frozen horror, the fear clawed at her insides, as the creature's growl grew louder, mixing with the echo of its laughter. Would the light bring salvation or destruction? The light flickered one last time, and Jessica felt time slip away. She took a shaky breath as the creature's growl morphed into something sharper, more primal. The sound reverberated in her chest, a deep drumbeat of impending doom. "Don't let go, Ethan!" she cried, fear tightening its grip around her heart. As they approached the edge of the void, dread twisted inside her. Reality felt warped, as if the very ground beneath them might vanish at any moment. The light wavered, illuminating the abyss just enough to reveal its depths, and a cold wind curled around her ankles like a serpent. What if it's a trick? Ethan's voice trembled, doubt lacing his words. "I don't know," she whispered, trying to sound brave. She could feel the dark shift behind them. "But we can't go back." Her instincts screamed at her to retreat, to turn and run from whatever haunted them. But behind them, the creature advanced, its presence looming larger and more terrifying in the flickering light, a tangible darkness that seemed to suffocate them, tightening its grip like a vice. "We have to jump," Jessica shouted, her voice barely a whisper above the growl. Ethan's eyes widened with panic. "Mom, what if we fall?" "There's no choice, Ethan. We either jump or let it catch us." Before she could lose her resolve, she grabbed Ethan and leaped into the darkness. The fall felt endless, a dark tunnel stretching beyond reason. Gravity pulled them down, and a scream escaped Ethan's lips, a sharp sound that echoed around them. Jessica held him tight, praying that below them lay something, anything, to break their fall. Suddenly, a splash. They hit icy water with a jolt, plunging into sharp cold that shocked the breath from Jessica's lungs. She surfaced, gasping, and instinctively clutched Ethan, who swam beside her, his small body shaking. "Mom! It's so dark!" he cried, panic rising in his voice. "I know. Just keep swimming." They paddled blindly, the water thick with a strange substance that pulled at them like hands of the unseen. Each stroke felt desperate, and the fear clawing at Jessica returned tenfold, wrapping around them like the darkness. "Mom, what's happening?" Ethan's voice was now swallowed by the darkness, trembling with fear. "I don't know. Just focus on my voice." There was no time for anything else as the growling above them faded, yet the air shimmered with a new menace lurking beneath the surface. Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone in this cold abyss. The water churned with uncertainty, and something else seemed to brush against her leg. A whisper of something beneath, something alive and waiting. "Hold on to me," she shouted, fighting the ripples of panic that threatened to drown them both. But as the dark around them grew deeper, so did the silence. The only sound was the frantic rush of their breathing mixing with the gurgling of water. She strained to catch any sign of direction, any indication of escape. And then from the depths, a gleaming pair of eyes emerged, wide and unblinking, watching them with unfathomable hunger. Jessica's blood ran cold. "Ethan!" she screamed, dragging him away from the beast that stirred below. But her strength was fading, the exhaustion pulling at them both as the shadows began to thicken around the creature, forming a shapeless mass that seemed to reach for them from the depths. The abyss had opened its mouth, and it was ready to swallow them whole. Could they escape the depths, or would they be consumed by both water and terror? Something was waiting below, something that knew their names, their fears. A sudden chill swirled, and Jessica felt broken breaths on her neck. "Ethan, we need to find a way out now." But as they swam, the creature below surged upward, hungry for their fear. Shadows stretched to cover them, and the water turned to ice as reality began to slip away. What awaited them in these cursed depths? Would they find salvation or become the next whispers in the darkness? The darkness wrapped around them like a shroud, suffocating and cold. Jessica fought against the icy grip of the water, her heart pounding fiercely in her chest as she held Ethan close, his small body trembling with fear. She could feel the presence lurking just beneath the surface, moving with a predator's grace, just waiting for the right moment to strike. "Mom, I can't swim anymore." Ethan's voice was barely a whisper, fraught with the despair of a child losing hope. "Just a little longer," Jessica urged, though her confidence wavered. The shadows swirled around them, and the eyes beneath the water gleamed with a hunger that made her stomach churn. Suddenly, a violent splash erupted nearby, and a massive shape surged upwards, sending waves crashing around them. Jessica's breath hitched in her throat as a grotesque figure emerged, the creature, a twisted amalgamation of nightmare, draping in dark, slick scales. It moved with a chilling elegance, its hunger palpable in the air. "Grab my hand," Jessica cried, her voice breaking. In that moment of terror, she felt her resolve crack. Was this truly the end? The creature's maw opened, revealing rows of glistening teeth that glinted in the faint light, a rancid stench washing over them like an unholy fog. Ethan lunged for her hand, desperation etched across his features. Their fingers clasped tightly. Just then, the beast lunged, its massive jaws snapping inches from their bodies. Jessica yanked Ethan backward, heart racing as they narrowly escaped its grasp. "Swim, Ethan. Swim for your life," she urged, pushing her fear aside, unwilling to let it swallow her whole, to let it take her son. With every ounce of strength left, they kicked furiously, shrieking against the horror that pursued them. Jessica could feel the creature's presence, a terrible weight looming close behind, pulsating with a twisted hunger. Panic fueled their movements, adrenaline surging through her veins. Each stroke felt heavier now, the water thicker, as if the darkness itself conspired to drag them down. Cold fingers brushed against Jessica's legs, and she screamed. "Mom! Mom, I feel something!" Ethan shouted, eyes wide with terror. "Just keep going," she gasped, pushing back waves of despair. But the water didn't relent, it fought against them, pulling and dragging. Dark forces whispered promises of surrender, luring her to give in. And then, a light broke through the smothering darkness, a beacon of hope shining in the depths. Jessica squinted, her heart racing. "Ethan. Do you see that?" "Yeah. It's over there," Ethan cried, pointing towards the glimmer that danced like a flame above the abyss. "Let us go." With renewed vigor, they swam toward the light. The creature let out a roar that echoed through the water, the sound vibrating with fury. The dark mass surged in protest, bulging and twisting around them like a coiling serpent. As they neared the light, Jessica prayed it wasn't just a mirage, a cruel trick of the water. The surface shimmered above them, and with one last push, she broke through, gasping for air, dragging Ethan up with her. But the relief was short-lived. They emerged into a nightmare. A strange and twisted landscape awaited them, one where the air crackled with menace. Trees loomed overhead, gnarled branches stretching towards the sky, their forms grotesque in the pale light. Eerie shadows flickered at the edges of the forest, and the creature's growls resonated from behind, cutting through the uncaring silence of the dark woods. "Where are we?" Ethan asked, breathing raggedly. "I don't know, but we need to move. Now." She glanced back, dread pooling at the thought of what lurked behind. In that moment, something brushed against Jessica's leg again. Cold, quick, a whisper of threat. "No. Not again." The forest seemed alive, whispering their names, drawing them deeper into its heart. Her instinct screamed at her to run, but where? The darkness encroached, the hungry eyes watching from the gloom. Silently, dread pooled in the flat of her stomach. They were far from safe. The abyss had merely shifted. What awaited them in this twisted forest? Would they find an escape or a fate worse than they could imagine? Jessica and Ethan stumbled deeper into the darkness of the twisting forest, disoriented and trembling from their near escape. The air hummed with a menacing energy, thick with the vivid scent of damp earth and decay. Every rustle in the underbrush sent adrenaline surging through Jessica's veins, as if the shadows had teeth, ready to sink into them at a moment's notice. "Mom, where do we go?" Ethan croaked, his voice cracking with exhaustion and fear. "Just a little further, sweetheart," Jessica replied, gritting her teeth against the weight of despair that clung to her. The forest loomed, overwhelming and oppressive, its branches clawing at the darkness like desperate fingers begging for release. As they moved, patches of moonlight spilled through the treetops, illuminating the chaos and revealing shapes that seemed to shift and breathe with life. Every pause felt like a trap, inviting unseen eyes to scrutinize their every move. "Wait!" Ethan whispered, stepping backward, terror gripping him. Jessica turned sharply, following his gaze. A hulking shadow stripped of form, gliding just beyond the reach of the moonlight, lingered at the edge of the forest. Its presence coiled like smoke, dissipating and reforming as if it couldn't decide to manifest or remain hidden. "We have to move," Jessica urged, feeling the prickle of fear crawl up her spine like fingers grasping tightly. But before they could take another step, a guttural growl broke through the stillness, raw and powerful, sending icy dread gripping Jessica's heart. "Run!" she screamed, grabbing Ethan's hand, yanking him along as they darted through the trees, branches clawing at their clothes as they fled. They wove through gnarled roots, every footfall pounding in rhythm with their frantic hearts. Shadows danced on the ground, growing longer and more sinister, beckoning as they narrowly escaped the monstrous force that trailed them. "Over there!" Ethan shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. Ahead, a break in the trees revealed the remnants of an old path, worn smooth by time and memory, a thread of hope woven in despair. "Yes. Quick!" Jessica said, her legs pumping as they lunged toward the opening. As they broke free of the dense underbrush, the air felt lighter, and for the first time, they glimpsed the distant glow of safety, the glow of a cabin far from the shadow's reach. But just as relief washed over them, the growling erupted behind them, feral and impatient. The beast was relentless, crashing through the trees, and its laughter ghastly and taunting mixed with the rustle of branches, trailing them as if it was savoring their fear. They reached the cabin door, pounding on it, praying it wasn't too late. "Help! Please, open up!" Jessica cried, desperation flooding her voice. The door creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. "Hurry!" the stranger urged, eyes flickering with urgency. The moment they crossed the threshold, Jessica slammed the door shut, her heart racing in her chest, pushing back against the encroaching darkness that threatened to envelop them. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy, filled with an uncomfortable stillness. The stranger exhaled sharply, glancing at the door as if expecting it to burst open. "You shouldn't have come here. The woods, they hunger. They were chasing us," Jessica exclaimed, panic still dripping from her voice. "What is out there?" "The legends, the warnings, they were true," the stranger said, tightening their grip on a flickering lantern. "The forest is alive, feeding off fear and despair. You must leave at dawn, return to the light before it claims you." Jessica felt the full weight of dread fill the cabin, their relief snatched away like leaves in a windstorm. "What do we do now?" Ethan asked, his wide eyes flicking to Jessica, seeking comfort in her resolve. "Stay close. We'll be okay," she promised, though uncertainty gnawed at her thoughts. Hours dragged, the night stretching endlessly as shadows moved beyond the thin walls. All Jessica could do was hold Ethan against her, breathing in the scent of damp wood and sweat, wishing she could protect him from the dark world outside. As dawn crept over the horizon, the shadows began to recede, but the memory of the terror lingered like bitter dust in the air. Stepping outside, they found the forest transformed, the jagged edges softened by promising light, yet an unsettling tension remained, like a held breath. With every ounce of strength, they followed the narrow path, the cabin fading behind them like a bad dream. The forest breathed with distant whispers, and though the fear still gripped her, Jessica felt the warmth of the rising sun bathe her skin in hope. Together, they began to run again, the call of freedom pulling them forward. They wouldn't look back. They wouldn't become part of the forest's dark legend. As they breached the edge of the woods, the light blossomed into a brilliant dawn, washing away the memories of shadows that clung to them. Jessica's heart soared. "Mom, we made it!" Ethan cried, a joyous laugh escaping him as they burst into the bright openness of the field. "Yes, we did," she said, pulling him close. And in that moment of freedom, they realized, the darkness only held power over their fears when they let it press down. Hand in hand, they vowed never to let such terror seep into their hearts again, leaving behind the haunted forest's whispers as they embraced the life that waited for them, wide open and unafraid. But as they walked into the light, Jessica couldn't help but glance back one last time. A shadow flickered between the trees, a fleeting reminder that the darkness would always be waiting, hungry for new stories to devour. Don't miss out on our future spine-chilling encounters. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to get the algorithm feeding. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters, show it.